Well, thank you for that. And we'll jump to our mentoring round where we'll ask you several quick questions intended to inform and inspire future finance leaders. We're wondering about the first time you stepped into a CFO role, Davinder, and what it is that if you could just go back and tell yourself, there must have been something when you arrived in the role for the very first time, that something you wish you knew, something you thought looking back now, you realized if only I had understood that more. Anything? What would that have been?
Probably a mindset kind of an issue, Jack, right? So looking back to that first time, it's okay to fail. Just because you're the CFO doesn't mean you have to succeed at everything every time. And in fact, what I would say is if you're not taking calculated risks and failing, I don't think you're pushing hard enough against the constraints. You're playing it safe. You're also kind of missing out the opportunity to learn some very valuable lessons, because I would say, it's through failure that you'll learn, kind of some of those valuable things that you're ever going to learn. And related to that, I would also say, it's important not to assume that you're the problem, right? So things will go wrong. They'll go off the rails. And I think finance people tend to be introspective by nature. They tend to think about what could I have done differently? What does this mean? And because of that mindset, I think we tend to shoulder blame unnecessarily, right? And there's other functions that are very good at basically either just having a blind spot around their own, kind of call it, shortcomings, or maybe they're just very good at, projecting onto others. And we can become the brunt of that, right? So if I could go back, I'd tell myself, just make sure you kind of look out for where the problem is, and don't be afraid to speak up.
Great, thank you for that. And we will always like to ask our guests to reflect a little on the personal side for us. And is there something that most people don't generally know about you? Something?
Yeah, okay. You know what? So I think most people, actually all people that know me today, would think that I'm very comfortable kind of being around people and doing public speaking and just being, extrovert. I've actually had clinical, kind of those executive assessments done where I've come off the charts extroverted. Growing up, I was super, super shy, and I still have that, right? So there are moments where, what people don't see is I need to go back and recharge, right? So there's a part of me that basically needs to go back, recharge, so I can almost go back out into the world and do what I do.
Along your professional journey, when did you begin to become less so, or understand that about yourself to perhaps modify your behaviors in some way? I'll make a guess. You arrived at IBM and you were kind of maybe still a little bit shy in certain ways as an executive, and not perhaps in the minds of some demonstrating leadership capabilities in your future. How did you break out of that? Where were you? Were you 10 years in? When did it happen to you?
Yeah, it probably started like that 10 to 15, kind of in that range, right? It's pretty gradual. I don't think it was like I woke up one day and suddenly I changed. And I think it was a combination of basically just, over time, you kind of, see situations play out, and you kind of know in your mind, kind of how you feel about situations. And over time, you kind of I was right about that. I should have spoken up. I was right about that. You get enough of those experiences and you kind of get that confidence that, what, I've got a 90% success rate here, or a hit rate. I think I'm okay here. And the other part of it was, quite frankly, being around people that were more senior than me, doing the kind of jobs that I thought were very high, and saying, I can do that. What do they have that I don't have? So it's the combination of those two things that came together that just kind of, and I think at some point I decided, what, I don't want to live my life in fear. I'm going to take some risks here. I'm going to talk up. What's the worst that can happen? And what I found was when I began to do that, good things happened as opposed to bad things. And then that becomes a very, very kind of addictive thing in its own way. So that's kind of been that journey.
Well, thank you for that. We always like to ask if you have a book selection, or it doesn't have to be a business book. It might be something you escape with, something that's influenced you in some way. Anything come to mind?
Yeah, I read a book called The Happiness Hypothesis by a gentleman named Jonathan Haidt, and he's a psychiatrist, if you will. And the book's all about how do you find happiness? What is happiness? How do you find it? Where is it? And it was quite eye-opening for me, in a number of ways, and no real earth-shattering, kind of wisdom in there, but it's kind of just a confirmation of a lot of things that maybe you suspect in life, but you just need to read it.
Enjoying your day more,
Well,
just living in the present. What is there?
it boils down to living in the present, right? And I
No.
do think a lot of times, we tend to get caught up in, well, where do I want to go? Where do I want to take my career? Where do I want to take the company? And you get hung up on all that stuff, and you kind of forget to enjoy today,
Yeah.
right? Or said another way, the real excitement and the real fun's the journey, not the destination, right? Is another way of saying the same thing. But he's got a lot of really good ideas about how to maybe kind of, stay present. Obviously there's things like meditation and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
one of the ones that, one of the tips I picked up was just feel your toes. Kind of make a conscious effort to feel your toes. It brings you right back to the present. When you
Interesting.
find yourself drifting away. So that's been a great, kind of a personal book. On the other side, from a professional perspective, there's probably a couple of books, that I would recommend anyone that's aspiring to the role, pick up and try and read. One's kind of for your left brain, one's for your right brain, right? The left brain or the hard skills one would be a book by McKinsey called Value: The Four Cornerstones of Value Creation. Really kind of helps you understand how value is created, how you conserve it, how you grow it, and things like that. Great ideas for like how to do all of that stuff. And then the other one is a book by a couple of Wharton professors called The Art of Woo. And this book's all about persuasion. It's all about selling your ideas to stakeholders and things like that. And I think about that as a companion, those two as companion, kind of volumes, if you will, because one gives you great ideas and insights about how to kind of run the business, but that's not enough, right? You got to then go sell those to people that it matters to. And together, I think that's a great combination of books to have.
Nice. I don't think we've had all three before, so thank you for those. Always great to get new books on the shelf. We are up to our final question, where we'll like to ask you to look forward finally and share with us your priorities as a CFO for the coming 12 months. What would those be?
Yeah, you asked about capital structure at the beginning of the call, Jack. So, I think the next, call it capital event for us would be an IPO, right? Some time away yet. But my job is going to be to kind of get the company to be ready as an IPO candidate. So there's a lot of work that goes into that, right? It's a good, call it 18 to 24-month process, whether it's around governance, whether it's around better predictability and being able to describe the business and things like that. So a big part of what I'll be focused on will be that IPO readiness and be making sure that we're ready to go as soon as the windows open up for us.
Davinder Athwal, thank you for joining us on CFO Thought Leader.